Good morning, everyone. Today I'm introducing House Resolution 118, which are articles of impeachment against Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. As a legislator and lifelong resident of the state of Michigan, it is my belief that we are dealing with the most lawless Secretary of State in Michigan history. Not only has she flaunted numerous Michigan laws, Michigan courts have ruled against her in 7 different instances. Even Secretary Benson's lawyer has stated, when questioned in open court, that the Secretary will obey only the laws that she deems constitutional or that she agrees with. The articles contain, the impeachment resolution contained 3 articles. Article 1 states that Secretary Benson has routinely exceeded her authority by ignoring the procedural requirements imposed by legislature in statute. Secretary Benson's PAC made an $82,500 donation to the Keep Kyra Harris Bolden for Justice Committee 1 month before her arguments before the Supreme Court on O'Halloran versus Benson. She has banned open carry of firearms within 100 feet of polling places on Election Day, a clear violation of our U.S. Constitution, which she has taken an oath to defend. She has issued a presumption of validity of absentee ballot signatures, clearly breaking the law when it comes to our election process. In November of 2020, her recommendation to the State Board of Canvassers to certify the results of the November 3rd election, despite the fact that she had been made aware of substantial allegations that the Wayne County Board of Canvassers never properly certified the results. Article 2 of the resolution states the allegations that the electronic and paper copies of the QVF and electronic poll book records differ. The Secretary's deletion of electronic poll book data following the elections on the 7th calendar day following the final canvass and certification of the election. Federal statute requires every officer of election to retain and preserve for a period of 22 months all records relating to the election. Article 3 of the impeachment resolution refers to Secretary Benson's threatening of local boards of canvassers who would potentially not certify the election at the local level. And finally, Secretary Benson's ordering a local clerk to refrain from any election administrative activities in October of 2021. That's the articles. In summation, it's a 9 to 10 page article, and I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the article. Yes, sir.
If these go through, will this affect her run for governor at all?
I don't think that it's for me to say whether it will reflect her run for governor. It's independent of that. We've been dealing with this for almost 4 years now, and this is a long time coming, in my opinion.
How confident are you that this will get a vote in the House?
My confidence is in our grassroots across the state of Michigan, and that I have members in this body that feel strongly that we as a legislative body are the only ones now that can hold Secretary Benson accountable, and I believe that that leads me to be confident that this is a strong issue for our House of Representatives to bring to a vote, and it's my hope that it will be brought to a vote. Yes, sir.
Have you spoken to your caucus leadership about this and their thoughts on it?
I have, and I believe we're on the same page in the fact that we feel that only the legislature is the last remaining body to hold Secretary Benson accountable. Our Supreme Court's not going to do it. Certainly our Attorney General is not going to do it. So this is falling to us as legislators to uphold. I mean, we've got statutes that are being broken. We've got rules that are constantly being broken. I have an incident in my township where a person was placed on the qualified voter file in clear violation of all the rules they've set up, and our rules are derived from our statute. So people will say, are the rules laws? They are, because they're derived from the statute. We have laws that govern our elections that are being ignored over and over.
Has Speaker Hall told you that this resolution will be put up for a vote?
I haven't gotten that assurance, but he understands that the resolution is coming forward and that we're going to talk about how we go forward from here. Yes, sir.
Regardless of whether this is successful impeachment, if it isn't and she remains the secretary, what does that mean for the next election?
I don't know that it has meaning for us as a body going forward. She's been Secretary of State, and she is Secretary of State now. She's ruling on election law every day, and she's operating under, has her position and misoperating in her position every day. The presumption of validity, I think, alone, to presume, to invent law, that's our job. Our job is to make law. To invent law as a administrator in a state and say, well, this is my interpretation. I'm going to interpret that. We're going to presume that all those are valid and legal. To me, I mean, there's so much here. For someone to give $82,000 to a Supreme Court justice when they have a case before the Supreme Court, to me, is a very egregious act for a state official. Whether she's in office going into 2026 or not is not for me to decide. I believe we're dealing with issues that have happened up to this point, and that's what I want to focus on.
You mentioned things leading up to this point. Why now specifically?
Well, this has taken a long time to get to this point. We worked really hard on these articles to make sure we were focusing on the violations of the law and the violations of her office. I would have, my preference would be to have been here before you before this, but this is how time has worked out for us to finally get the articles and to introduce them. I don't think that the where we are at with the articles really pertain to the future. They more pertain to what has happened up to this point.
Well, how would you respond to folks who say this is just a political maneuver? She's running for governor. This is coming out as she's, pushing forward with that campaign. I guess I think at the federal level, like we saw impeachment articles brought by Shri Tanadar dismissed very quickly by his own party. How do you feel this differs or is not political in that sense?
It's a valid concern, a valid accusation to have to deal with. We're politicians. People all the time think when they say things are political, how are they not going to be political when you have a Secretary of State who is running our elections? I always thought that the Secretary of State, growing up in Michigan, always was above that whole political process. Like, I would not have thought that our Secretary of State would make an $82,000 donation to a Supreme Court Justice re-election campaign when she has a case before the Supreme Court. I would think that the Secretary of State would always want to uphold the law, would always want to have transparency, would always want to have the election be beyond a questionable, beyond a reasonable doubt, to be able to say, no, this election is clean, I can prove it, I'm doing everything by the book. I mean, I know that you all cover a lot of things in politics. You probably appreciate when somebody does things by the book. We might not always agree that sometimes when somebody goes by the letter of the law, but I think a Secretary of State or an Attorney General that goes by the book, I could certainly respect. When a Secretary of State breaks this many laws, goes off the reservation that severely, I don't know anything else that we can do as a body than to hold her accountable as a legislative body. There's no other controlling authority. I can't stress that to you enough. The courts are not correcting this. When the Secretary of State, probably you would all view it as a minor offense, but when the Secretary of State announces her reelection campaign in a public building, when we're all expected to obey the law and not use public property, not use government property to announce our political objectives, and she does it, and they say, well, she broke the law, but there's no controlling authority, there's no penalty here. So in a long roundabout way, I think that whether it's viewed as political or not, my people sent me here to uphold the law, to make good law, and to have fair elections. And I believe that we're not anywhere near that right now. So if they want to deem that political, then it's political. It is about keeping our Secretary of State accountable to the residents of Michigan for her job. Her job is to run the Secretary of State's office and to run elections. We make the law that determine what is the authority over the election. She cannot make that law. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. I appreciate it.